That's very interesting. And the reason why I try to ask you to identify who you are is to give us a glimpse at what is your motivation, what pushes you, what makes you tick. So if you were to put it in a sentence or two, would you say that's like helping people, helping others, alleviating suffering in the shape of your medical career? Is it pushing the envelope sort of and coming up with new tools and gadgets, as you call them in the beginning, at the cutting edge of technology with your scientific background? Or is it to have fun, which I would imagine is the reason for being a pilot?
Well, I think it's always important to have fun. Being a pilot and flying has always been a lot of fun. It's been fun to fly little planes, and then when I got the chance to be a flight surgeon in the Air National Guard to get to fly in fighter jets, of course, that's fun. Um, and I'd say always sort of follow your passion and follow your bliss, and you'll end up in interesting places. Even if you don't end up on the moon, you'll get close or somewhere interesting. Um, so I think what drives me is, in terms of bigger picture, is impact. I would probably feel frustrated being a pure everyday doctor, and that's a wonderful thing to do. But I want to, I think, achieve larger impact, hopefully across healthcare. And for me, it's most fun when I get to do that with other people, mixing that from other fields. Hopefully, educate and inspire them a little bit about what's possible in medicine and science and healthcare, or what the problems are. Um, so it's simply fun for me to sort of be a cross fertilizer, to bring people from the worlds of AI or robotics or IT or gaming or gadgets and go, to some degree, let them know what's happening in medicine, what the big problems are, what the reality is. A lot of people have a beginner's mind and a naivete about what can be done in healthcare and medicine, which is great. We need those sort of beginner minds, but it often has to be grounded in some reality. I mean, listen, that's what's really what happens in the clinic or in the operating room or in the emergency room. It's not as simple as having this technology and plugging it in. Um, so there's that angle. I like being a connector and seeing where there are opportunities between different fields, even in medicine. And one thing that happens at Singularity U and the Future Med program based there is we bring people from even different realms of medicine. So I'm trained as a hematologist oncologist. I'll go to the ASH meeting, American Society of Hematology meeting every year. But by doing that medical device project, I end up going to cardiology meetings or even neuroscience meetings. And when we bring folks to Singularity U and FutureMed, we have physicians from multiple different specialties, often who never speak to each other outside of maybe the pure consultation role in the clinic. And they get to see where might the area of imaging match their area of interventional cardiology, meet AI, meet big data, meet apps. And then they'll talk to somebody who's working in synthetic biology and vaccination and global health and say, wow, these things might connect in ways that they never imagined. They see where the puck is going a little bit, where the trend might be in artificial intelligence in healthcare or synthetic biology or mobile apps, and go, wow, my problem might be addressed maybe in 6 months by putting these things together. So part of my role is sort of being an instigator, an educator, hopefully seeing where different threads are going, a bit of a connector. I've been labeled a bit as a futurist. I don't necessarily think I don't have that I am hat on, but hopefully I get a little bit of a perspective on where things are heading and where the problems are and how certain technologies and convergences can come together. And I think that word convergence combined with exponentials is where things get interesting.
That's very interesting that you said about your interest in healthcare and where things are heading. And one of my new friends here in Canada is the head of an organization which is working on reshaping or saving Canada's healthcare. And they have a portfolio of about 35 or 37 million dollars. And actually, he's very interested in the Future Med program at Singularity University, and he was going to attend, but his wife was unfortunately going through fighting cancer for the last few months, and now successfully she pulled through, which is amazing. But I would actually, that reminds me, I should connect you two guys because you do have a lot of things in common, and he would eventually come and join you there, the Future Med program, for sure. So perhaps now is the time to tell us a little bit more about what Future Med is. What is the goal? What is the program? What's the purpose? What's the structure? What's the process for those of us who are interested in joining you?
So as at Singularity University, we've had 3 summers, 10 weeks, to look at AI, medicine, robotics, IT, healthcare, space, energy, and approach big problems. And not everybody has 10 weeks, and not everyone can get there. And we've also been lucky to do every quarter or so executive programs that again cross the multiple spectrum, but are limited to 7 days. Usually for folks a little more advanced in terms of age or experience than those who come to SU, the summer program. And lucky for us, the medicine track has often engendered a lot of the interest in terms of all the cross threads that come together from participants who come to the program. And but the problem is we only have like 4 hours to cover medicine in that week, plus a couple little side visits or workshops. And Peter Diamandis and I were both at the TED Med conference a year ago. We've both spoken at TED a couple of times and TED Med. And the TED conferences and TED Meds are fantastic, but they're kind of limited in a sense in the format, 18-minute talks, short talks, but they're not often connected. And we thought, wouldn't it be interesting to take the Singularity U executive program format and look at those core tracks that might affect healthcare and do a focused executive program, which eventually we ended up calling FutureMed at Singularity University, to focus on where can fast-moving technologies, not just exponential technologies, but I'd say rapidly developing technologies, especially when they come at a convergence, how can they change prevention, health, wellness, diagnostics, and therapy, and medicine in general. So that was where the idea of FutureMed converged in a sense that we might be able to take the lessons of SU in the format and have a little more of a deeper dive in curriculum than you can get at a normal executive program or some of the things you get at the wonderful TED and TED Med programs. So that's where the idea for FutureMed came together. We pulled together a working group, some track leads like we've had for SU in general, and last May did our first FutureMed, which was 5 days essentially. And we have essentially, kind of like Singularity U, some core tracks, genomics and personalized medicine, again, something moving very quickly, and we're now down to essentially $1,000 genome, so definitely exponentials at play. Data-driven health and the web, all the elements of people using big data and connected health, whether it's teleconferencing or telemedicine as an example. We have a track on regenerative medicine, layering into that a bit of aging and longevity, stem cells and related arenas. We have a track on neurotechnology and neuromedicine, a lot of things actually happening there from imaging and new approaches for Alzheimer's and Parkinson's. We have a track on simply the practice of medicine. How does this all come together to change how we're going to innovate? We talked about, or we mentioned, healthcare economies in Canada and elsewhere are in big trouble. And just published last night was a study that many of the major economies are going to be downgraded if they continue on their track of spending with the aging population. So it's almost like innovate or die. So how are we going to practice medicine and give access to the many folks who are underserved today can be leveraged through technology. A couple other tracks, including global health, many elements of how first world medicine and technology can now be layered almost directly, in some cases first, to the developing world. Innovation can in some ways happen faster there. So those are a few of our tracks. They're all illuminated on the website, futuremed2020.com. And one thing that's special, as you'll know, and some of your listeners about Singularity U, is we're not a conference. We're not 200 or 500,000 people. We're limited to about 80 full-on participants, and we have about, this time, 60 or a little over 60 faculty coming in and mixing it up over the week. And we have an environment where you can have discussions and conversations and Q&A in a way you can't do at a big conference. We can do workshops on innovation, site visits. We'll go to Intuitive Surgical, which is a leading robotic surgical company. We'll go to Kaiser's Garfield Innovation Center, where they try new innovations in-house and look at how it works in the real world. We'll go to Autodesk and look at 3D printing and design. So things we can do with a small intimate program that you can't do elsewhere, and bring a mix of people and ideas together. I'll mention one thing that we're doing a bit differently that others might want to do in their other kind of programs is we're mind mapping the whole event. We did this last time with one of our faculty, Jim Caravella, who spent years mapping his mind and other connections. And by sort of connecting the speakers, the ideas, the companies, the technologies, the academics, the needs, the solutions, and sort of a living mind map, we hope to kind of create a living entity that can be shared in the Singularity U, FutureMed world, and beyond to help spur innovation and see where things are sort of heading to help connect dots.
So you have this incredible ratio of 60 faculty to about 80 attendees.
Right.
That's unheard of. That's almost one-on-one.
almost one-on-one, and a lot of the faculty end up staying there the entire week, or the ones who can't stay are like, oh, I wish I was staying the whole week. I wish I knew.
That's
Uh,
absolutely unbelievable.
right, and we all live there on the NASA Ames campus, which is good. So you have the ability to stay up late, have some bonding in the bar, um, and have some of those cross-fertilizations and conversations you don't get, if you're at a big conference center, or even if you're in a hotel. I mean, there's
Yeah.
something different about being on the NASA campus and in the Singularity U, classroom space that facilitates things that don't happen most other places.
I can vouch that some of the best memories that I've taken from my time at Singularity Universities were from the computer lab at 2 a.m. with a bunch of people discussing the future of humanity, or in the main auditorium, or what we called the Voodoo Lounge at some point. Yeah, so I highly recommend it. But let's get back on topic here. I know that the current edition of the Future Med program starts in just a few days, but for those people who would like to join you for the next one, do you have any idea when it would be and how they can begin the process of looking into it and perhaps applying?
Sure. Well, first thing, we have a fair amount of material from the last Future Med up on the website at futuremed2020.com. It's also linked from the primary singularityU.org website. And I would encourage people for some content. We have a videos link of some of the faculty, not the full-on talks, but we asked them to give like a synthesis, like 5 minutes on what did they just talk about. Those were beautifully produced with our co-partners at Doctors Channel. So there's some nice things from Tim O'Reilly talking about where big technology and crowdsourced information is taking healthcare, to Thomas Getz from Wired, looking at feedback loops, to Ronnie Zeiger from Google Health, to others. Some of our faculty from last time, some of them are coming back, synthesizing some of their talks. So there's some online content there. Some of the takeaways from last time, sort of those like one-liners, like in the future we won't prescribe drugs, we'll prescribe apps, one of my little takeaways. Or, in the future we may be 3D printing complex organs. That might be a takeaway for someone who doesn't know much about 3D printing or regenerative medicine. So we have a kind of a listing of some of the takeaways to look at from the last one. We'll be doing that again this time. There's a newsletter to sort of sign up for, which we very occasionally use, but we'll make sure you're aware of when we run the next Future Med, which will either be late this fall or more likely again early next year in 2013. And we'll keep it at that. So sign up on the email list. We'll keep you apprised. Follow us on Twitter, Future Med Tech, at Future Med Tech, and our Facebook group, which is just facebook.com/FutureMed. And you'll get occasional updates, interesting articles, sharings. We will also be live streaming the first full morning of Future Med on the morning of February 9th.
Oh, that's fantastic.
February 7th, Tuesday,
Yeah.
is our introduction to exponentials. So a lot of the participants coming into Future Med, about half are physicians, half are not. Many have experience with exponentials, many don't. So we're doing a not fully medical focused meeting, but morning, but focused on exponentials. We'll be started with an hour of Ray Kurzweil. He'll be teleport-teching in with Q&A. Then we're going to do several short talks on the future of AI with Neil Jacobstein, who chairs the AI track with Dan Barry. We'll have Dan Barry talking about 3D printing and robotics. We'll have a talk on IT and the web from Salim Ismail, who is the first executive director. And of course, on nanotechnology, Ralph Merkel. So we'll have several, we'll be anchored by the amazing Ray Kurzweil and then our amazing core SU faculty, kind of giving short introductions to exponentials and where they're heading and how they touch on medicine. And we'll close that first morning in that live cast, which hopefully you and your viewers can join if the technology works, with a closing talk by the co-chair of bioengineering at Stanford, Dr. Stephen Quake, who's a real pioneer across exponentials, including microfluidics and shrinking labs to microfluidic chips, which is now becoming a real game changer in medicine and other fields. He's co-founded a couple companies, including Fluidigm, to do that. Was one of the first people to have his full genome done and to look at the implications of knowing what your genome is, together with several of his smart doctors and colleagues at Stanford. What do you do when you present with a genome? Still a big question. So our first morning, I hope folks can join us, 8:30 a.m. Pacific Standard Time on Tuesday, February 7th. And it will be streamed from the singularitu.org website and futuremed2020.org website, or .com.
Fantastic.